the Mars in Aquarius, you know, this person, like me, and Gemini and Mars too, right? They like to think before they take action. You know, they have to know, okay, what type of people do I have to, get involved to, make some things happen. Who am I going to, run into, this, if I'm, you know, trying to do something, right? I'm gonna have, different results for different types of people I meet, right? If I meet this type of person, this could happen. If I meet this type of person, this could happen. These people also like to experiment with their ideas and make shit happen based off of that, but they need other people to get the shit moving. They're like that. That is how that works. You know, and that's how they move around. They get their friends together and they're like, okay, we're gonna do this and this. I want to see, if we can try this idea, try this, try that. You know, they like to be an idea person for a group. Help out in that manner. If they're alone, things can be tough at times because they need that, communication with other people. But they're also smart enough to make a plan to, eventually, meet up with these people, do this at a certain time. It just depends on the person and shit. These, some people, um, if they have like, fire or water for the, sun, moon, you know, these people, still they'll know how to plan ideas out. Like they'll think before they do some shit, all right? And they'll know who to like be around and other things to make certain things happen for themselves. They like to, oh fuck, what the hell? They like to, um, I don't, they don't do like anything. you know, this person, could also think too much, before moving and talk themselves out of shit too. Like they could have an idea and then the way they thought about it was like, oh my God, would I really want to do that? Because if I do it, then, I could be putting myself in harm's way or even, my idea could get somebody else hurt. Let's not fuck with that. But maybe, that, it could actually, work out. But you like talk yourself out of it or something like that. And that's true. That happens. You do that. We'll fixate on one thing too, and like the overthinking part is what I'm saying. You know, you can make your dreams, your aspirations come true. People will come to you. And then you'll, because they know you as a, person who is logical or moves in a logical manner. You're not gonna put your life on the line. Necessarily. Some people might, you know, you might not go out for somebody else. You might have somebody, help somebody else out in their endeavors, and then they will then, you'll know that, if you help them out enough and, help them along their way, then they'll then come back and help you out. But that in itself can also make it so, one, you're, whatever you're trying to accomplish, that gets, put on the back burner, right? So you're second. you know, you might think that, okay, I helped this person out for so long and other things that, they will then help me out too, make sure I'm all right. And they could. But, you might be met with, results that you weren't thinking, because these people, care about themselves more than, I ain't going to say more than you do, but, you think a lot before things happen. And then it seems as though you don't care about yourself and your goals, you know, aren't, you ain't making things happen, but you are making things happen. Because, like, let me tell you, you're a thinker, man, or girl, you're a thinker. You make things happen, but you make it happen. So, because you have to sit down and think before you do stuff. And then you need certain people around to make things happen too, because you have a specific mindset on things too. It's not just gonna be this way. You know, I can't just talk to some dumbass. I have to talk to this person, this talk to, and sometimes it can feel daunting. Not even daunting though. Not daunting. Just where do I like? At what time do I meet these people? You have questions, and sometimes when you question things too much, talk yourself out of things. The talking and shit. It helps. Write down shit. Write shit down and then stick to that. That's what I would do if I was something like you. And that's what I do. I write shit down too. You have to have plans if you're somebody who's like this, and you do. But sometimes you put your own you know goals on hold for somebody else in hopes that they help you out. Sometimes it don't work out, but then you like also know that you can still get something from it. And you still think about a way, and you're smart, so you will eventually get there. You're logical, you will eventually get there. Some people ain't smart though, and they still get what they need with this placement. Other people will struggle a bit, or might seem as though they're struggling a bit, but it is not like that. Overthinking, that's all. But you know, mm, and with the right people surrounding you and the right group of people, friends, you can get your shit accomplished. You can accomplish your goals. You know, that's how this person moves. You think of a logical plan. You got your friends around. That's the idea. That's what we're going for. We'll do it. That's how you guys. That's how you do it. You know, and you can do some stuff by yourself, but you know that you need other people too, and that's fine. You know, you'll get your goals accomplished someday, and you will. Because that's a logical placement too. Smart people get shit done too. Stay cool, and on the corner, of course, because that's Mars and Aquarius.